Hi everyone! I thought the best way to give you today's instructions was with a video, so sit back and relax and let me tell you what we're doing today. First and foremost, make sure that you finish this week's bell work, you put your name on it and turn it in before you leave today. And then you're going to be doing 2 assignments in your sketchbook, and both of these assignments will be checked and given a grade next week while you're working on something else. So make sure that you do them to your best of your ability. The first thing we're going to do is a drawing of the origami crane that you did yesterday, that you made yesterday. If you weren't here to fold an origami crane, you will find some extras up on the poster file. So you're going to do about a 30 to 45 minute drawing with shading of your crane. And then the second drawing that you're going to do is a little drawing of a piece of popcorn. So we're going to do reverse values and do white colored pencil on black paper. So you have to kind of just switch up your thinking a little bit. And that should be about a 15 to 20 minute activity. All the supplies for this are on the poster file. The black paper, little bag of popcorn, and the special white Prismacolor colored pencils are going to be up on the poster file for when you're ready for that. Make sure that before you leave today, you have those shading worksheets from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday-ish completed, and put your name on them and turn those in. And then please help out and make sure that all the supplies go back in your supply bucket and put on the back counter before you leave today. All right, see you guys next week. To get started on your origami crane drawing, you need your origami crane. If you were absent, there are a few extras for you to choose from, and you need to set it up on the table in front of you. And I had to squish mine a little bit, make some minor adjustments to get it to stand up like that. If you're having trouble, you might use a tiny little bit of the kneaded eraser maybe underneath it to help hold it up, or you could get a little piece of tape and make a little loop and just have it sit on a little bit of tape. You don't want to do too much because it's going to maybe kind of get in your way of drawing. But set it up and you can turn it a few different directions till you just find an angle that you like, and then spend a little bit of time looking at it. So I'm using my phone for this part because the document camera will just give you an overhead view of my crane, and I want you to be able to actually see it the way I'm seeing it. So I would spend a little time just looking at it and thinking about, where am I seeing some of the darkest values, where are the lighter values, things like that. I don't want you to worry too much about the cast shadows, because as you can see, because of the multiple light sources in here, you have kind of a weird, funky variety of light sources, and we're not going to get too involved enough to dim the lights and have a single light source so that you can get a really strong cast shadow. I'm not super worried about that. I'm more interested in you really looking and noticing where the values are, especially in places like right here where you can see it's like almost like a little highlight on the folded line. That's the kind of thing that when you see that and you notice it and you include that while you're drawing and shading, that's what's going to help your drawings look more realistic. So I'm going to encourage you to avoid doing really dark, heavy outlines and just start with some values. So I'm going to try to draw and film myself at the same time so you can see both what I'm doing and the original thing I'm looking at. And I'll encourage you just to pick a place and I would just draw this about the same size that it is in real life. Don't go super small, but also don't go too big. And I think I'm going to start with the head and actually work my way back. Just for me, that seems to be kind of the place to start. So when I start, I don't want to start with a super, super dark outline. This is a little hard for me to see what I'm doing, and also my phone, so it might get a little funky here. Okay, so I'm going to start with just the top of my crane's head, and I'm trying to draw really lightly. If you prefer to use just a regular pencil for this, that's fine. I'm just using the ebony pencils because it's what I had handy. And so the nice thing is you can just kind of start lightly sketching some shapes. I'm not going to get too involved with shading right now. I'm just kind of worrying about getting a general kind of shape going, and then thinking about where the lines kind of relate to each other. One of the things I like about this is that you really start to look at, okay, where does this line up? How long should the neck be? And then, how far, like I'm looking at right now, where does this come up in relation to the top of the head? That's the kind of thing that I'm going to try to pay close attention to. If you're having trouble seeing the values, squinting your eyes a little bit helps. And certainly keep in mind that erasing and revising is perfectly acceptable. So I'm just trying to sketch in some shapes right now. I'm not trying to make really heavy outlines because those heavy outlines are what really flatten something out. Okay, so now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to just kind of start doing some of these values. So I'm noticing, it's pretty dark right underneath here. And I'm just going to start going in and doing some of my values. And keep in mind that the kneadable eraser is there to help lift off too, so that will be something really good that when I get to somewhere like that, this part on the bird, right, having a little highlight right along that is going to help. All right, so this is my crane drawing. I worked on it for at least a half an hour, probably a little bit longer. So I would say for all of you, at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes on this drawing. And if you're doing it faster, it's probably something that you maybe did too small or you're rushing through it. So I would encourage you to kind of watch the clock and be drawing for at least a half an hour, if not longer. And I went ahead and I did a little bit of a cast shadow just because I didn't want my crane to look like it was just kind of floating in midair. So I went ahead and added that a little bit of the cast shadow and just to kind of help ground it a little bit. So you can see that on my drawing and see how mostly I kind of was working with that cast shadow and a little bit of that stuff too. For your second drawing activity today, you're going to be doing a little mini still life of a couple pieces of popcorn. So we're going to be switching this up a little bit, and I'm going to challenge you to kind of reverse your thinking about values. So instead of doing graphite onto white paper, we're going to be doing white colored pencil on black paper. So here's a little one that I did in a previous year, but I'm just showing this to you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So normally when we are shading with a pencil, we leave the paper white or use our very lightest pressure to show the lightest values. But when we do black paper and use a white colored pencil, where the lightest values are is actually going to be where we use the heaviest pressure because we're trying to make it the whitest of the white colored pencil. So you have to kind of switch your thinking a little bit. So what's going to happen is when you are ready to start, you're going to get a little black square of paper, and this is just going to tuck in your sketchbook, or you can tape it in next to your crane, and you're going to get a little baggie with 2 pieces of popcorn, and you need a white colored pencil. So we're using the Prismacolor white colored pencils because they are a little bit better quality than the Crayola ones, and they'll show up a little bit better on the black paper. So your challenge is to draw your pieces of popcorn larger than life size. I think it just makes it easier if you're working a little bit bigger. So when you get your popcorn out, you can carefully examine it and just kind of set it up how I guess the vantage points that you find most appealing. And I would encourage you just do one at a time. And I'm going to tell you that you should spend at least 15 minutes on this. And so if you kind of, or even I would say 15 or 20 minutes, give yourself 10 minutes per piece of popcorn, right? That's a good amount, I think, of time. So when you start, I'll start with this one, and keep in mind, like, my vantage point from what I was seeing is a little bit different than what you're seeing, because you're kind of getting a bird's eye view, whereas I'm kind of seeing my popcorn a little bit from the side. I'm going to start and kind of squint my eyes a little bit and look for where are the lightest values that I see on my popcorn. And whereas it might just seem like, oh, the whole thing's white, right? Or very light colored, I can tell, it's lightest here and in some of these parts down here. And if you squint your eyes, it really helps you to kind of start to see the values pop out a little bit more. So I'm just going to kind of start up here, and I'm challenging myself to try to go a little bit bigger. And the great thing about popcorn is that it's such a funky little shape, right? Like it doesn't, who's going to know if you get the pieces exactly right? So I'm just going to kind of start really lightly kind of sketching in the shape of my popcorn, and I'm attempting to go a little bit bigger than life size. And I have to keep in mind, like where I see the shadows, I actually don't want to mark that much, because that's going to be where it's going to be the darkest. So I'm trying to use a really light pressure just to kind of get a general, like kind of little shape of my funky little piece of popcorn. And then I can go back and start kind of working on my values. So if it helps you just kind of do like a really rough little contour. The kneadable erasers, I don't know how well they'll work on here or not. Let's give it a little try and see what happens if I decide I'm not really happy with that. Not amazing. I'm not super impressed. It does lift it off a little bit, but that's good for right now. Okay, so I have kind of generalish shape of my popcorn here, and then I can kind of start going back in and thinking about, okay, where am I seeing the lightest values? And this is really, when it comes down to it, right? We've talked about this before. This is an exercise in really looking. And the more you look, the more that you will see. So I'd really encourage you, spend more time staring at that piece of popcorn than actually looking at your drawing, and really see if you can start to pay attention to the different values that you're seeing. It's ultimately, that is what drawing realistically is all about, is really paying attention to those values that you see. Okay. So I'm just going to keep working my way across and, thinking about where I see the darkest values on my popcorn. You guys can't really see it from there, but like underneath here, in there, I'm going to try not to color at all. So I'm actually kind of trying to color around the shapes that I see for the darker values. So I'm trying to leave some of that black paper in there, because that's where I see some of the dark values. It's kind of a reversal of thinking, and it's a little bit of a challenge. But that's why we're doing it. Okay, so when I get finished with that one, I can just go on to the next one. If you want to try doing, a cast shadow, you're more than welcome to. So you would want to leave around the base of your popcorn, like you guys can see this cast shadow right here. For me, I see more of one underneath it down here. But you could leave a little bit of a shadow where you don't color at all, right? And then color. So for me, I would be doing, something like this, where I leave a little bit of the paper black to be the shadow, and then I shade a little bit to make it look like the paper that it's sitting on. So hopefully that kind of makes sense about that. And then if you have time, if you spend 20 minutes on one piece of popcorn, then no worries. But if there's time, I expect for you to start on the second one, and doing your best with trying to show those light values and those medium values and those dark values.